Hello everyone and welcome to another webinar in support of Ready, Set, Go 6, our new 6th year course from Inglês ASA. And today we're going to be looking at something which is of extreme importance, and that is making sure that what we try to teach to our students sticks in their brains, making learning stick, making language, grammar and vocabulary stick in the students' minds, and making it, of course, readily available for recall later. We're going to be using this man as one of our guides for how to do this well. You'll probably recognize him, but let's put his name up on the screen as well. This is JFK, of course, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was President of the United States from 1961 to 1963. Now, we're going to focus on one sentence, only one sentence that he used in a speech when he was talking to Congress in 1961. And it was a sentence that actually changed the whole course of American history. Let's see exactly what he said. He said, and I shall try to do my best American accent here to make it sound more credible. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. Apologize if I sound like a cowboy when I'm saying that, but that was John F. Fitzgerald's classic quote. And it did lead to massive changes within the American nation. Now let's see why and how this sentence became so very important and very memorable. Now, I'm basing this theory on reading that I did. I read a lot around this area. It's one of my main interests. And I'm looking at two books in particular, which explain success in this area. They are, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, Made to Stick by Dan Heath and Chip Heath. They are both professors in American universities. And a book called Brain Rules by John Medina, which we'll come to in just a moment. But the Heath brothers use this acronym or acrostic, if you like, success, to remember the factors that make things memorable. So let's start at the top with the letter S, which is simple. They say that if things are presented in a simple way, it will make them more memorable than if it's more complicated. That makes sense, of course. Let's look at how this relates to JFK and what he said. Now, he made this groundbreaking, nation-changing statement all in one simple sentence. There are no dependent clauses. He didn't break it into paragraphs. It didn't go on very long. It was one simple sentence, and he transmitted an incredibly powerful idea in that one sentence. Simple it certainly was. The next factor which the Heath brothers talk about is U for unexpected. They say that things that are unexpected are more likely to fix in the brain simply because they provoke that reaction of surprise, and things that surprise us stay longer and are remembered longer. What was unexpected about what JFK said? Well, I've highlighted it here in green. Landing a man on the moon in 1961 was something which was really unheard of. People listening to him probably expected him to say something like, we should achieve the goal of reducing inflation or of creating more jobs. But what he said was achieving the goal of landing a man on the moon. And we can imagine the people listening to him in Congress saying to each other, did he say the moon? The moon? We're going to the moon? It was completely unexpected, and probably even later that day, that week, that month, that year, people were still thinking, we're going to go to the moon. To the moon, that's incredible. The unexpected fixes in people's brains. The next letter, C, stands for concrete. Things that are expressed in concrete terms are more memorable and stay longer in long-term memory than things that are expressed in abstract terms. Now, if he talked about improving technology, going into the realms where no man has gone before, that's not using concrete terms. But what he said was that this nation should send a man to the moon and return him to the earth, using concrete terms that everyone can understand and everyone can relate to and have no doubt about the meaning. Concrete terms help things stick. And then the next C in the series is credible. If people are going to believe and relate to something and remember it, it needs to be seen as credible. It needs to be believable. Now, fortunately for JFK in 1961, simply by being the President of the United States, made him credible. What he said was taken by hundreds of millions of people across the country as being true, credible, believable, and inspiring. Nowadays, you might say things have become a little different, and more recent presidents perhaps are not so credible. But back in the early 60s, what the president said was believed by most people, and he had that advantage of making credible statements. The E of success stands for emotional, and I think we all know how important emotion is to help us remember things. If we can activate the system in the brain, the limbic system inside the brain where the emotional center lies, then we have more chance of transferring short-term memory to long-term memory because the emotion helps it stick and helps it be memorable and recallable. The emotion in this sentence from JFK lies in the last few words he said, returning him safely to the earth. So not just sending a man to the moon and saying, good luck, hope you enjoy it, but bringing him back home safe. That's the emotional part. People imagining this guy making this epic journey, but returning home safe and sound to his home, the earth. That's the emotional impact in his sentence. And then the final letter in the acronym from the brothers Heath is the first S. The other S comes from John Medina, but let's look at the first S in this acronym, which is S for story. And everyone knows, of course, that stories transmit information in an incredibly efficient and long-lasting way. People have used stories for thousands of years to transmit important information, to help educate their children, to remember things that are important in their lives and in survival. Stories play a key role in the human existence. And there's really no story more memorable than going out into the unknown and returning home safe, especially when it's talking about sending someone from the Earth to the moon and back again in the early 60s. It was an incredible story that he told in that one sentence. So, the acronym that Dan and Chip Heath used in their book Made to Stick stopped at that first S. It was success with only one S at the end. I added another based on my reading by this book, Brain Rules, by John Medina, which is sensory. The more sensory information we can pack into what we tell our students or what we tell anyone around us will make it more memorable. And let's move to another visionary person to get a prime example of this. This person is maybe not as instantly recognizable as John F. Kennedy, but to many people he is extremely famous and well known. This man is Heston Blumenthal, who for a number of years was regarded as the best chef and cook in the world. His restaurant, The Fat Duck, was voted the best restaurant in the world in 2005 and was in the top 3 restaurants in the world between 2005 and 2010, voted for by his colleagues, his co-chefs, and by restaurant critics. People who know what they're talking about said, this guy is one of the all-time greats. And what Heston Blumenthal does was make sure that he uses a complete sensory experience when he's presenting food to his customers. Let's look at an example, one of his classics. This dish, extremely unusual, is called The Sound of the Sea. And it appeals to every single one of our senses. Obviously, visually our sense of sight takes in this extremely unusual looking dish with its green and its white and its different colours leaping off the plate, a very unusual plate as well. We can smell, obviously, the aromas coming from this plate of food, which activates that very strong sense. We have the different textures on the plate. He's got foam, he's got soft things, he's got crunchy things, all making that different tactile experience as you eat. He's got the sound of the sea to go with it. The genius of this dish is that he gave the dish to his customers accompanied by a shell. Inside the shell was an MP3 player, and as they listened to as they ate the dish, they would listen to the sound of the sea, and they would hear the sound of the sea through their headphones and get that complete sensory surround from this dish. That is going to stay in your memory probably forever. It's an extremely good example of how the senses help fix information. So, moving on from Heston Blumenthal and John F. Kennedy, let's go to two other extremely famous and successful authors, and those are the authors of the Ready, Set, Go 6 project. As part of their project, they chose this text from a very well-known author in the UK called Anjali Raou, who is a very well-known author for young people and an activist working on behalf of refugees and immigrants. And this text, which is found in Ready, Set, Go 6, tells a simple story of a Syrian boy refugee who's trying to make a new home for himself in the UK and to be accepted into a class of English children. Now, how does this relate to the acronym that we've just talked about? Well, of course, it's a simple story. It talks about friends getting together to help a boy feel more at home in their class. It has a very simple setting and a very simple message. We should accept people and help them whenever we can. It's unexpected because the key item in this story is a fruit. It's a pomegranate which is not a well-known fruit in the UK, and so even more unexpected. And that makes a different kind of centre for the story. It is concrete because it uses very simple and straightforward terms. It talks about boys and girls and friends helping another boy in the playground with a fruit to become more happy. Everything we can relate to in very simple and concrete terms. It is credible because it comes from a published and successful author, and what she says is very well regarded around the world. It is emotional, of course, because it's friends helping someone who needs emotional support. He starts the story sad. He ends up by becoming a little happier and making a move towards becoming more included in his class. And, of course, it's a story. Like all stories, it's going to really help that information stick, and children will learn of the importance of respect and inclusion and diversity by reading this emotional but simple story. And it even has the sensory factor. The fruit in the middle. As you read this story, your brain will be activated and you can taste those pomegranate seeds. Areas of the brain, even when you're thinking about food or smells, areas of the brain will be activated in the same way as if you're actually eating or smelling those things. So it has that sensory appeal at the same time. And it's not just in this one story that we find these factors in Ready, Set, Go 6. All the way through the new project, you will find every one of these factors being used to their best effect to help children learn and fix the information that we hope they will successfully take on in the 6th year. Things need to be simple. We make the grammar simple. We have simple models and simple tables to make it as clear as possible. We give simple tasks and clear outcomes when we ask students to do tasks and exercises and speaking and written production. We also, of course, all the way through the book have unexpected moments of games and videos and cartoons and things the students aren't expecting to see in a study book, which pop up and help them enjoy their time in class. We use concrete terms, especially in the 5th and 6th year, where we're very often teaching concrete vocabulary of places and people and jobs and activities. It's credible because we very often use authentic sources like this one, like this story. We talk about real people and real situations and real places, and that helps make the information we transmit more credible. And the emotional factor is also here, not just in this story, but talking, for example, about another story of a girl who sailed around the world on her own at the age of 16. A true story about an Australian girl, which was incredibly emotional and very appealing to young children to read about this bravery. And of course, stories are found all the way through the course. In terms of the texts, in terms of the videos, in terms of everything we present to students, it's all making one big story that will carry their English forward. And there are even sensory moments that we can exploit and that we can trust to help fix information in their brains. We've got the fruit in this story, but there are also food and smells in the CLIL activities and in the crazy celebrations. You'll find a poster with celebrations which include food, and you'll also have tactile materials to work with. That's incredibly important, that students can actually pick up and manipulate and move their materials to help them learn something. Some students learn especially well when they are able to touch and move and use that tactile experience to help their learning. So, Ready, Set, Go 6 does this extremely well all the way through the course. I think it's a real strength of the way that we can help our students learn. And I hope that this simple acronym or acrostic will help you also make a check on what you're teaching your students. Is it simple? Have I got something unexpected? Is it going to be credible? Is there a story in there somewhere? You may not get all of these factors at the same time, but it's a great guide for you to make sure that you're making your learning as memorable for your students as possible. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this is going to be useful for you. Please enjoy all these factors as you use and enjoy Ready, Set, Go 6. Thank you and goodbye.
Lei Educação. Ponto de encontro.